I have an American flag behind us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Now is time for the audience participation. Mr. Yoder, I believe you are down at City Hall or down at the school building. Is there anybody showed up for audience participation?
I have not seen anybody. Let me check the front door real quickly one more time. And
Sure.
Nobody's out there. Give me 1 second.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, am I allowed to bring up something that was messaged to me, or does the person have to be present?
In just 1 second, yes, you are. But let's see what Mr. Yoder comes back with, and Mr. Giffen has one or two I believe he needs to bring up as well.
We have nobody here. Nobody has shown up tonight.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yoder.
Okay.
Mr. Giffen, did we have any electronic communication for people trying to bring issues to council?
I just received one via a council member this afternoon, and I don't have the specifics in front of me on my phone here, but I can assure the resident it had to do with a parking slash working on your car on the side of the street complaint, and we have forwarded that to the police department to be addressed. So that's all I had.
Okay, Member Baszler, I believe you had one as well. And you're muted.
Yes, this was off one of the Facebook pages. The citizen, Sarah Shepard, couldn't make it, but she would like to know if the city has plans for O'Fallon, Manhattan Drive, and Fifth Avenue intersection. We would like to have an update on if there's any plans or workarounds or what the city is doing about it.
I know that I've reached out to Member Neary. He's done some work as far as that traffic flow. In the past years, we've done some different things as far as moving traffic left to right, east to west, however you want to call it, for one-way streets. The conversation's not over. We need to re-engage, I think, the citizen and see how we can make that a safer stop. I know there was a lot of growth around one of the stop signs coming off Manhattan Boulevard into 5th Street. Public Works has removed that growth, so you can now see the stop sign. So there's a few fixes that we need to make. Talked to Mr. Yoder today about possible speed bumps in that area. So we're gonna address that, and I appreciate Ms. Shepard for bringing it to our attention.
Yeah, I have a couple too.
Please.
Some of these came in through Facebook, some of them came in text directly to me, but it's basically about the grass. And I know the situation, and I know we're working hard to get things done, and these guys are busting butt. But I had an idea, because there's a complaint about a house in the 600 block of 4th, complaint about Clay Street between 4th and 5th. There's a complaint about 4th and Walnut and the 900 block of Thornton. 2 of these properties are abandoned or owned by the banks or whatever. Is there any way that the city can maybe hire a local company such as RJ Woods or another company to maybe take care of some of these personal properties that we in turn charge back to the banks? You know what I'm saying? Like we pay RJ or we pay this company, whoever it is, and we get the reimbursed when we get the taxes on the houses. I mean, just till we get through this.
That's a good point, Mr. Giffen. Can we do that with a private company?
Yeah, we would have to solicit bids to see what the cost would be. We have done it in the past, and it's just really, really expensive to the point where we didn't, the cost didn't justify the means. But we can certainly take a look at it again.
Yeah, it's getting pretty rough
Michael-
right now. And also, I'd like to see something go out to the businesses, some kind of communication to maybe just ask them to look around their property and try to spruce it up. Even some of the businesses are not going outside and taking care of their properties. And I mean, if we keep complaining, I keep saying on Facebook, let's all do this together. Let's do your neighbors if you have to help out. But we got to get everybody on board, including the city. And I know, like I said, I know the Public Works is busting butt. They really are.
Michael, on the grass cutting that Tammy is talking about, would that have to come under a contract? And as you stated, you would have to go out to bid for that?
Yeah. That's
Well, yes, we would likely go under contract, but it's something we would have to at least get some bids for. But, it also comes back to, we don't have that. That's not something we have budgeted for in our budget. So it may also have to come back for a budget amendment of the official general fund budget.
Thank you.
Has anybody talked to the Campbell County Jail to see if there's any possibility of this starting back up anytime soon? Has anybody reached out to them?
We have. I don't think we've heard anything back. Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, so it doesn't look promising. I'd be shocked if we got it back, anybody back by next summer.
I reached out to Judge Pendry. Mr. Giffen was with me when I did that probably 2 weeks ago, requesting that we're in a pinch right now, especially with the summer times and the growth, and how important those inmates are to our program. I've not heard back from Judge Pendry at all. If that's his call or not, maybe it's a governor's call. I don't know. Maybe it's somewhere in the middle. But yeah, we are reaching out to him because that's 6 to 9 bodies that we have on a daily basis that are trimming weeds, are doing good things for our city that we are just lacking right now. In the last 2 months or so, some days we're running on a one-man shift.
I know.
It's for whatever reason, doesn't matter. It's that's where we're at. So yeah, we miss those inmates, and we love that program, and we hope to see it back soon.
Right, and I'd just like to say that I know everybody always highly commends the Public Works group because they do a good job, but it's really been rough, and I hate to see it go backwards. I really think that the city we should try to figure out something that we can do to help them at least get through this period of time.
Ben, has anybody reached out to Jim Daly?
No, nobody has.
I mean, I think he's got the call.
If that's his call, then Michael, if you could put it on your notes there to reach out to Mr. Daly to see what we can do to get these inmates back in our space.
Well, I could just tell you, it's not a matter of just convincing him. It's they're not going to release. I mean, the discussion around the region is they're not going to release any inmates until on the national stage this thing is under control, and that likely means something in terms of a vaccine. That's just what's been said. Kind of, So it's not a matter of just us begging him. They've made it pretty clear that they're not coming out for a while until this thing's under control on a federal level, not just the region. So I can reach out, but that's what they're going to say. They haven't made any decision. That's probably why we haven't heard back from Judge Pendry is there's nothing to say other than they're not coming out.
Why don't we as a city sponsor clean up your block day for a 2-block period, like a couple times a month, and get people out there on a Saturday for 2 or 3 hours? I think I think some people would do that just to weed things that are obvious and, get some things going that way.
Yeah, but my concern was that the houses that are sitting vacant that aren't getting anything done. I don't think we as a citizen can go on the property I don't know.
No, I wouldn't do that. I'm talking about invisible areas, visible like on
Right.
6th Avenue, those kinds of things.
In the alleyways, I've noticed, me and my neighbors, we've been working together on killing weeds and weed eating in the alleys, which is typically taken care of by Public Works. This year, it's not, because it's not forefront. I agree with you, Mr. Volder, that we should put together some type of program that, or just, I don't know if it's a social media blast or what, that just gets people out of their houses and their alleys and then their front streets with some weed killer and some weed eaters to knock these down.
If I may, Mayor, if I may,
You may.
we always run into this every August because that's when the weeds are the worst. And we're always shorthanded in Public Works in August and early September, even with the inmates on board, because you've got so much growing. And I mean, it happens every year. I had previously suggested to you and Mr. Giffen that we investigate that for next year, we could possibly contract out cutting the flood wall, which takes so many man hours throughout the year, so that Public Works could concentrate on the rest of the city. What I'd like to see is over the next few months before we get into next spring, if we have to amend the budget at that time to outsource it, that is so much of a strain on our Public Works. I think that needs to be investigated as to whether or not we can contract that out. At least cutting the flood wall rather than these odd jobs around town. That way the Public Works can concentrate on everything north of, or south of the flood wall. Just my thoughts.
I spoke with Mr. Giffen earlier today about that exact idea. We're going to put it out to bid and see what we can't get and see where it works within our budget. And anything to add, Mr. Giffen?
Just that we've looked at it in the past, and all these things kind of come down to a dollars and cents thing, and there's no right or wrong answer. I mean, we can unload, Councilman Neer is right, we can unload a substantial amount of work off of our Public Works plate by possibly contracting that out. The flip side is becomes a huge budgetary strain. We've got some work to do on the budget, and that adds another 50 grand. 40 or 50 grand, I think was what we got quoted for last time, and that was low. We gave somebody a shot to do it, and they ended up doing a terrible job. But you know, it's a trade-off. You're right. It would take a huge load off, but it adds a huge expense. So we're just going to have to figure out. I'll get some numbers together, as I told the mayor today, and we can look at where that falls within the budget, and if we're willing to, where we can try to make it fit. But a lot of these things come down to it's a dollars and cents thing. You know, I would love to get the Public Works crew another employee or two, and we were able to get a seasonal worker that started this week. That'll certainly help. But in reality, they probably need another body or two full time. But again, that's, you know, you're looking at $120,000 added to the budget. So we're gonna have to really, you know, figure out how to make some of these things work. While not putting the city in you know, budgetary jeopardy.
Well, I don't think we can depend on the inmates coming back. I think now we realize the value of that program even more.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't anticipate them coming back before next spring at the earliest, just out of precaution. And
Yeah,
quite frankly, I don't know that we would want to expose our employees more than they are already. So I think just to prep for next year, put that option in front of council. You know, if we want to outsource it for X amount of dollars because the trade-off in manpower, and that way we don't have to add manpower and benefits and everything else if it's outsourced to some other contract.
Yeah, we'll put something together. Hopefully get several bids in. I'll work with Rick on putting together the full scope, and we'll get in some prices and see what it looks like.
Thank you.
Pardon me, I just got an email from Kathy Gordon Mr. Yoder, that she was trying to get in the building and nobody was there.
Perhaps you try again. I mean,
I just emailed her back and said that if she knocks on the door, she'll be let in, or we'll bring her concerns to council if she wants to put them in the email. Do we have any other concerns about audience reports? Unless Mrs. Gordon gets back to us, we'll move along. If she does, we'll go ahead and add her into the conversation. We'll go on to the mayor's report. This week, one of our businesses, they had an outdoor event. It went over very well. I was there personally. I noticed that everybody was pretty socially distanced. I noticed that the staff was wearing their masks. Everyone was doing a pretty good job of trying to make the best of the light situation. So I want to applaud them for reaching out to the city and saying, these are the things that we want to do and how can you help us? The message goes out to all of our businesses that the city is here to work with you and help with you to get through these tough times. So please keep on coming to Dayton. We have things going on, and enjoy our neighborhood, enjoy our businesses. They're alive and they're well, and we're going to work with them to make sure that we can continue to get through these days. Second thing I want to bring up in the mayor's report is the code enforcement search. We've received, I believe, a dozen, literally 12 resumes for code enforcement. We have conducted a few interviews throughout those. We're going to continue to do interviews, and that goes right back to Ms. Cornett's questions about these buildings that are not being taken care of. It's extremely important that we find a good code enforcement officer. Mr. Lyles retired last month. We tried to retain him, and it did not work out. And we're going to do a good search to make sure that the next person that comes in is taking care of Dayton's interests. So we're going to move that forward. Wanted to bring up that this week is the first week of Dayton Green Devils coming back to school. So both elementary schools and high school are coming back. They are virtually currently. We're very excited to see them back in school, even though it's kind of different. But we're happy to have them back. So go Devils. We'll see how we can compete on the field and also compete in the classroom. And lastly, I want to bring up on the mayor's report the public works situation. Last month, we had a order brought up that we would increase or add an additional body to business development and those types of situations. We've listened to council, and we've made a move that what we want is not what we need, and what we need is not what we want. So what we've done so far is we've added an additional body to the seasonal public works force. So last week, Jordan Robbins, he's a Dayton High School grad, nice young man. He joined our force, and he's out there keeping our streets clean. We're going to keep Jordan on for the foreseeable future. So if you see him on the streets, welcome him and thank him for helping us do the work that we just got done discussing. That's currently my mayor's report, unless Ms. Gordon comes back in with some additional information. Any questions about my report? All right, we'll move along. Do I have an approval for the minutes of the August 4th, 2020 meeting?
Mayor, before you approve that, could I ask a question?
Yes, sir, you may.
At last month's meeting, there was a motion and second and was voted on. The vote was 4-2 to hire a temporary employee. And per you and Michael's information you gave us now, that person will not be hired at this time. And it says that you will be the only one approving this position. Since that position is not going to be hired at this time, could we entertain a motion to rescind that motion, take that person off the list, so possibly you could have another person come in for the city workers? If you're not going to hire that person between now and January, it's just sitting there. And my suggestion is you rescind the motion and let the next council take that position up.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. I don't think there's a need to rescind the motion. We're going to be likely bringing forward the compensation ordinance in October. And I'll just go ahead and make that change as well. We'll eliminate that if that's in essence what council wants to do. I would answer your question by saying yes. It doesn't look like it's going to be a role that we're going to fill here in the near future, given that we've heard you all loud and clear, and we understand that the resources need to probably be allocated elsewhere. So if you're okay with that, I'll just bring the ordinance forward next month and we can clean it up.
Well, I'm not okay with it, but I'm just one person on council. So if you're not going to rescind the motion, that's fine.
Well, you can. I don't know if you can rescind the motion. It's an ordinance. We would have to vote. You'd have to vote on an ordinance. So
you can rescind the motion to take that ordinance off.
Well, but there's no motion on the table. That it's an ordinance. It's been passed. So the only way to change it would be to present a new ordinance, and I'd be happy to do that in October. Unless if you have an ordinance that you want to bring forward tonight, then we could do it. But I don't have that prepared.
I kind of agree with Bill a little bit on concern. His concern is that if it's still sitting on the books and come December and you're not here or Ben's not here, somebody could hire that position for that position because it's still on the books.
Well, there's two things we can do. We can clean it up in October, or if somebody has a motion, or I'm sorry, if someone has an actual ordinance to be read, I don't think anybody has that prepared. You could make a motion on that ordinance tonight, but I don't think that's the case. So I'd be happy to bring it forward in October. We're going to bring forward that ordinance anyway, and we'll just clean it up then. I think you've got my word that we're not going to hire the position. I agree with you all that we need to put the resources elsewhere.
Michael, you're telling me if we had an ordinance, aren't all ordinances prepared by our attorney? They're not prepared by a council person.
Well, you can prepare them, but well, then have you had Mr. Edge prepare an ordinance tonight? That's what I was getting at, is we don't have an ordinance prepared to be read unless you've done that. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Bill,
The position was a part of the municipal order for our number of employees. That's what it was. The motion was to approve that order. Matter of fact, it's 2029R was the ordinance, the order number, and it was for compensation for our number of employees. So what you need to do is to amend that whole thing to not include that one position.
But I'm pretty sure it was done by, are you saying it was done by an order, Jeff? And not, I thought it was an ordinance, which would need to be read twice.
A municipal order declaring, oh no, wait a minute, hang on.
No.
Right, here it is. It's an ordinance.
Yeah, so, I mean, if someone has an ordinance prepared, we could read it, but I don't think any of us have it prepared is what I'm getting at. So the only other step would be, I can work with Mr. Edge, we'll amend the ordinance, I can bring it forward. And like I said, you've got my promise, we're not gonna hire the position. We've all made it pretty clear that it's not where we need to allocate the funding right now. So that's really the only option we have. Because it's an ordinance, we would have to pass a new ordinance tonight, and I don't think we have that prepared.
When do you propose you're going to hire this position?
Pardon?
When do you propose you're going to hire this position?
We don't propose that's going to happen anytime soon. Like anytime soon, I'll say 6 months.
Well, if Michael's going to prepare an ordinance for next month's meeting, what are you trying to rush it for, Michael? If Ben's saying it's not going to be hard for 6 months.
So, Councilman Burns, there's something we need to change on that ordinance anyway. If you want to allow for another potential position within Public Works, we're going to have to amend that ordinance. There's also some salary ranges that need to be looked at that we were going to bring forward for next month. So that would be part of it too. So I was planning on bringing that ordinance forward in October anyway. And if you all want to close the role that we approved, I can just go ahead and do that at the same time. That way in October, you can have a first reading, and in November, you can have a second reading, and it's cleaned up and it's taken care of. That's what I was getting at, was I'm already going to bring it forward. So if you want that specific item cleaned up, I'll be happy to do that.
I think it needs to be cleaned up. I mean, you're going to leave it on the books for no reason at all.
No, that's what I'm saying. The quickest I can do it is bring it to you in October. I don't have anything prepared tonight, so I can't read an ordinance. So that's as quick as I can get it to you is for the October
Okay.
meeting.
Very good. Very good.
And Bill, again, I can assure you that we have no intention on moving forward with that. It was an idea that came when we thought COVID was going to be 2 weeks long, and here we are 5 months into it. So that's not something we're moving forward on.
I just try to do everything legal, guys, and I respect that. Thank you.
And I respect that. Thank you, Bill. So I believe where we left off was the approval of the minutes from the August 4th, 2020 meeting.
I'll make that motion to approve the meeting minutes as published.
Second.
Motion's been made by Member Neary, and I believe Member Lynn tried to second it.
Yes.
Do we have any comments? All in
You
favor?
heard my comments, so
Aye.
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 And can I do a roll call because the video is kind of different? Ms. Myers?
Member Lynn,
Aye.
Member Volter,
Aye.
Member Neary,
Aye.
Member Baszler,
Aye.
Member Cornett,
Aye.
Member Burns.
no.
5-1. So we'll move along to the updates. Do we have any updates from city administration? Everyone received their packets from the police chief and as well as the fire. Any questions regarding those? No? All right. Moving along to ordinances and orders. Ms. Myers, if we could please have the first reading of the ordinance 2020 number 12, the tax rate for the fiscal year of 2020 to 2021.
I'm sorry. I just got a message from someone saying that there's no live video on YouTube right now. Before you read that.
Oh, thank you.
So Bob has sent me a message since he's running hotspot down at the school. He said that it wouldn't connect to YouTube. So we are recording the video. So we'll get that up first thing tomorrow. So I understand it isn't going live, but we are recording.
Ms. Cornett, if you could ask them if they have any questions they'd like to ask the council.
Okay.
We'll bring those up. I don't have a problem bringing those up until we adjourn.
Well, sir,
Sir?
I wish our city attorney was here. If this is not visible publicly, is this a valid meeting?
Yes, it is.
It is? Okay. Cover my bases.
Thank you, Ms. Cornett. Ms. Myers, again, if you could please continue with the first reading of ordinance 2020 number 12, the tax rate for fiscal year of 2020 to 2021.
City of Dayton, Kentucky, ordinance number 2020, number 12, an ordinance providing for the imposition, levy, collection, and apportionment of taxes for the city of Dayton, Campbell County, Kentucky, for the fiscal year July 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. This ordinance sets the real property ad valorem tax rate for the city for the present fiscal year at 0.434 per $100 of value for the general fund and 0.050 per $100 of value for parks. The tax rate for automobile personal property is set at 0.5009 per $100 of value and at 0.750 per $100 of value for all other property. The ordinance requires that all real property and other tangible property excluding motor vehicles and motor boats taxes be paid by November 30th, 2020. Taxes not paid by this date shall become delinquent. Taxes paid during the first 3 days after they become delinquent will be assessed a 1% penalty. Any taxes not paid more than 3 days after they become delinquent shall be subject to a penalty of 10% and shall accrue interest at a rate of 12% per annum until paid. The delinquent taxpayer shall also pay all costs, attorney fees, and other expenses incidental to any action taken by the city for collection of the delinquent tax bill. The ordinance also sets the bank deposits at 25 thousandths of 1% of those deposits. The payer of these taxes may pay the sum due less 2% if paid by December 31st, 2020, or the full amount by January 31st, 2021.
And that was a first reading.
Sir, when will we be doing the second reading on this?
Mr. Neary, I spoke with Ms. Ledger today, and she mentioned that I asked her if a second reading would be needed in the month of September. She said she did not see that necessary for this month. Overseeing that she sees the department. I respect her request, and we'll do a second reading on the first Tuesday of next October, or this October.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Moving along to the city administrator's report, Mr. Giffen, if you would like to give your report, please.
So I've only really got one thing. I was just going to let everybody know that the Campbell County fire districts have received a grant for the 800 megahertz radios. So I want to thank whoever was behind writing that. I know that's going to be a huge relief to our department and all departments across the county. So kudos to whoever was behind that. I know it'll save our fire department some money that they can allocate towards something else. So I was going to mention some of the public work stuff, but I think we kind of hit on that pretty good. So that's all I have.
Please note that I believe it was Karen Strictly, the secretary for Bellevue Dayton Fire Department, that wrote that grant.
Great. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Karen. If she was behind that, we really appreciate that. That's awesome. Thank you.
She's been pretty great at writing grants for us and has gotten us a lot of apparatus. So thanks, Ms. Strictly. Moving along on the agenda, we have updates. I'd like to bring up any type of new business that council would like to address council with. So the floor is yours. Anything you'd like to bring up?
Ben, I'd like to ask a question of Michael, and I wanted the question to go to our city attorney, Tom Edge, but with the situation with the virus now, Michael, have we gotten any directions how we're going to do this voting this year? Are we going to have precincts open up in Dayton, Kentucky, or is it going to be all absentee, mail-in, or only one precinct in Campbell County? Can you check that out and start letting people know in the city?
I'd be happy to, Bill.
Yeah, I just think it's going to be a problem this year, not for me, but for people running for council, if there's not a local place for them to vote. And if we have to tell everybody to do absentee ballot, or if it's going to be mail-in or what, the citizens should be told what's going on.
We'll keep an eye on that for sure. Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Bill, and I agree. It's weird times out there, and voting is important. So Let's keep our citizens informed as how they can vote.
Exactly.
Anybody else would like to address council for new business? I'm gonna shut it down in 3, 2, and 1. All right. Any old business, council? Please feel free to address council and administration.
I'd like to see a timeline and update on the grant programs in Sergeant Park and other grant programs, sidewalk programs. We're coming towards the end of the concrete season here, and a couple of months we'll be shoveling snow. Is there any update on the sidewalk grants and on the Sergeant Park grants?
I could touch on the Riverfront Commons and the sidewalk bump out grants. There's no change. We're still trying to push them through the process. At this point, I think it's highly unlikely we'll see construction this year, unfortunately, unless something really moves forward here in the month of September. But just looking at the timeline we have ahead of us, both projects would need to go out to bid. That takes a month. It needs to come back to you all to approve the bid. That's, could be another 6 weeks. And at that point, I think you're getting too tight. So we're continuing to push, but there hasn't been really any movement in the last month. So unfortunately, it's just some more bad news to add to 2020, but I don't, if I'm looking at realistically now, I don't see that getting done this fall.
May I ask who we're
If Bob's still there, I'll let him comment on the Sergeant Park stuff.
Okay, I'll start off on the sidewalk.
One second.
Can I go? All right.
I would just like to know who we're trying to push to do something in the case of the sidewalk,
All right,
because maybe
then I'll
we can
address that
push from
stuff.
different angles.
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
All right. Oh, am I muted? No, I'm not muted. Okay. Sidewalk red. Update on that. Got an email from GRW yesterday. Sent it to Ben and Michael. GRW is finishing some last little tweaks they have to do to move things forward. We've also working with KYTC to get some additional funds since costs have gone up since it was originally put in, and that is in process. Also in the past month, I've had to resubmit the e-clearinghouse documentation, and I also redid the Section 106 documentation. Had to discuss with Michael Jackson at KYTC. He's their historic preservation and environmental person, checking about our forms and where everything's at. We need to get this out to bid it out by the end of May next year, or I have a whole bunch of environmental documents I have to resubmit, which I honestly would rather not resubmit. So we, through GRW, through me, working with KYTC, have either dotted every I and crossed every T we can with that one. So that's where we are with that, and trying to continue to discuss with KYTC what we can do to move it forward, and also GRW to finish up some of the last questions that KYTC had. So I think we're getting close. Sergeant Park, a lot of this was going to be for the L'Oreal grant, was going to be involving groups of people doing volunteer work and things like that. With COVID, that has thrown a wrench into that for much of this year. We have gone through, and Groundworks Ohio River Valley has done things like testing of the creek, done a survey of invasive species and those type of things. So that has been completed. But some of the work we wanted to get done, especially at Jamestown Pike Park and the riverfront, where we were bringing in groups of L'Oreal and citizen volunteers, that is definitely on hold until which time we feel it is safe to do. The RTP grant that we received, we still have not received an MOU from that. I have reached out to DLG about that and have heard nothing. So that's kind of where we're at on that one. Also reaching out, we have 2 other TAP grants, the 2017 TAP grant for bus stops. We did move forward one aspect of that. At the last Dayton Housing Authority meeting, they gave us an easement to put a bus stop on their property at the corner of 3rd and Main. So we're getting that done ahead of time so we don't have issues with right-of-way on that grant. We have not received a memorandum of understanding from KYTC on that. Yes, I have brought that up with them that we're still waiting on that. We also got one for a 2019 submittal. Again, we have basically going further uphill towards Lincoln Road. And though we received that grant, we have not received a memorandum of understanding from KYTC. So that's where we're at with those. The sidewalk grant, I did go out, Mr. Neary, and as much as possible, kind of mark out where the bump outs were going to be. A couple places I have to go out and do some more. When I was doing the painting, there were cars there, and I think people would appreciate me not spray painting their car. But you can generally get an idea where the bump outs are going to go. So that's the update where we are with grants. You know, some of this stuff we were, another thing, we also had a meeting, and Michael's had a meeting too, with Sanitation District Number 1. There are some concerns about sewer overflows that actually happen in the city of Fort Thomas. But they're right on the border of Sergeant Park. Overflows are averaging about 40 to 80,000 gallons of untreated sewage a year. Nobody likes to hear that. But we've had discussions with them, and they're interested in having their engineers working on us on this, that they consider that relatively low-hanging fruit. So that's another effort we're doing to do the water quality there. Working with the park board, we're ordering some dog poop bag stations up there, putting up that you have to pick up after your dog, and your dog must be leashed up there. And also have worked with Fort Thomas on putting up park entrance signs that were requested, and that was a very good idea. So those are kind of updates where we are with the grants. I mean, I'm waiting. A lot of this, I'm still waiting on KYTC to move things forward. I'm in contact with them almost every week, asking where these things are going and where we can come next. So on some aspect. But I do, like I said, I do feel very confident that we will be able to go out to bid on the sidewalk and the streetscape grant this winter. Everything, there's nothing else to do. And there's a big push to get this done before some of the paperwork that I've already submitted expires according to the Department of Transportation. So I hope that provides information. Thank you very much.
Mr. Yoder, where are we at with getting a garbage can at Sergeant Park? We really desperately need some sort of place for people to put trash besides the one dumpster by the entrance. Okay. And it would also be nice to move the dumpster so that's not the first thing you walk into a park and have to greet yourself. I can talk to Rick about that. Okay. Excuse me?
I can talk to Rick about that.
Okay, cool.
Thank you for those updates. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Would anybody else from council like to approach any old business?
I have 2 questions, Ben. One's a suggestion. Mike, since we've had these technical difficulties, and that's unforeseen, this ordinance for the tax rate, is that on the city's website, Michael?
I know there's a first reading. It will be up there. Yes, and we'll do an October meeting in person because we'll have to have a public hearing for that. And so we'll do a another emergency first reading and a second reading, just so we cover our bases in October.
I understand that, but do we have to let the citizens be able to read this before we come in October? Don't you think we should let the citizens be aware?
We'll have that up there. As I spoke to you about the other day, I've got a report that I'm going to put up there as well after this meeting. And we'll also advertise in the paper as well. So we'll do those three things.
And the last question I have is to you, Ben. Last month I asked you about the mural pictures. Have you got any update on that?
Hold on, Mr. Burns, if you can give me 1 second, Mr. Edge just called. If you can give me 10 seconds to see what he needs, as he should be part of this meeting.
That's fine.
Okay, Mr. Edge just called to apologize that he was late. So, Mr. Burns, if you could please repeat your question.
Yeah. Ben, I asked you last month about if you had any designs or anything or any pictures on the proposed mural. Have you got an update on that?
Yes, sir. The mural company, OSRS, has sent me a few designs. They have, we've asked for updates on those, so nothing is final yet.
Right.
I imagine this week they were going to give us some finalizations, 3 different ones. They came out with 6 and kind of narrowed it down to 3. I'll share those with council probably the next few days. Just waiting for the artist to get back with that.
Very good. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I know we're waiting for Mr. Edge to join, so we'll give him a minute or so in case anybody has questions for Mr. Edge out of respect for him.
I just admitted Mr. Edge.
What's that?
Mr. Edge has just been admitted.
Hey, Tom.
Hey, Mayor. Sorry for the delay there. I had a personal matter that I attend to that is completely taking over my life now. Really, I'm sorry for not being able to make the meeting on time.
That's okay. I think in the many years that you've been our city attorney, you've never missed a minute. So you're excused, and especially when you have, what is it? Is he a 1-year-old?
Well, he's 15, but luckily this wasn't, this didn't have anything to do with them. So thankfully that's not that kind of issue.
All right. Well, you're excused nonetheless, sir. We've had some discussions tonight. I'm going to ask Mr. Giffen, do you think of anything that we've discussed would need Mr. Edge's attention?
Someone asked me some legal advice about the meeting. Here's your chance to see if I was right or wrong, I guess. So, Tom, we had having some technical difficulties with the meeting going live on YouTube, but we are recording it, so I can put it up tomorrow. I think one of the council members asked if we're still in conformity with the open meetings, if we're recording this and can get it up.
I think it should be in good order. Is it not? It's not going to live out to YouTube as we'd like it to.
Correct.
Yeah, I think we're in good order as long as we've tried. The statute asks that we try those items. I think the courts usually have some understanding and some way to the local government whenever it has to do with technical difficulties, things like that. A lot of people can kind of understand, hey, look, your video goes out, your camera goes out, the internet doesn't work as properly as you'd like it to. They do have some leniency for those kind of issues.
Yeah, I will note that we are recording, so we'll hopefully be able to get that up for everybody. We did open up the school administration office for anybody that wanted to come speak to council in person. And then we also, as we have during this virtual process, have had an open email for people to submit questions based on the agenda. So hopefully that'd be sufficient enough. And so just for clarification.
Michael, could you ask Tom the question I asked about the voting? If he's heard any information?
Hey, Tom, Councilman Burns brought up a good question about if you knew of any insight into the voting this fall in terms of if all polling locations are going to be open, and if there's going to be absentee balloting and a combination of any of those. Do you have any insight to how that process might go, or some of the discussions being had currently?
Sure. The information I have from the county clerk right now is that based on the recommendations put out by the State Board of Elections, Secretary of State, and the governor, is they're going to do the absentee voting. So if you have just any kind of fear, as it relates to COVID, you can ask for an absentee ballot on voteky.com the same way that you could during the primary. All the polling places will be open for November 3rd election, save if your polling place was in a senior center. There's a couple throughout the county where those will be combined to other polling locations, just so that way for the safety of our seniors. But outside of that, all polling places will be open, available to the public. The drop boxes and all the other and early voting will also be available as it was in the prime.
So Tom, you're stating that the two polling places in Dayton will be open?
Yes.
Thank you.
One more thing that I have to bring up to Mr. Edge, unless anybody else has any questions, is Member Burns had a question concerning the last month's order versus ordinance of hiring a part-time employee. Mr. Burns, would you like to talk on that, or are you satisfied with our response?
Well, I'm not satisfied, but I'm going to agree to it. I think you ought to rescind take the ordinance off the books.
So Tom,
I think it ought to be rescinded.
Tom, to clarify, we were talking about the new position, the neighborhood community coordinator that we passed via motion, via ordinance last month. Mr. Burns, we mentioned in the meeting that we didn't have an intention now to fill that role, that we felt that based on the feedback that we got from the city council, that money should be allocated likely to public works where help is needed. And Mr. Burns wanted to know if he could rescind the motion for that. My explanation to the group was there was really no motion to rescind, that we would have to bring the ordinance back in October to be changed and then have a first reading. So pretty sure that's how it needs to be done. I'll let you clarify if I'm incorrect.
No, that's correct. We'll just have to do a new ordinance to make it to that.
Michael, Tom, on that ordinance you're going to make for October, are you going to just put that position in, or are you going to put other positions?
So my thought, as I explained to, I think you all in my report, either last week or 2 weeks ago, that we felt you all made some really good points at the last meeting, and that we probably need to look to allocate some funding towards public works, and that in the future I would come up with at least a recommendation. So it's my thought that I would bring forward a recommendation to you all in the next couple weeks in terms of if we can create another position within public works to help with boots on the ground. And so if that ends up being my proposal, then you will likely see that reflected in the compensating ordinance. But I don't have that plan fully fledged out in my mind. So if you give me a couple weeks, I'll put some ideas together to run by you all, and we can figure this thing out together.
So what you're telling me is you're not only going to put that part-time position, I forget what it's called now, but you're also going to put a position in there for public works.
No, Bob, Bill's going to take out the other position.
Yeah, we'll eliminate the neighborhood project coordinator. If that's if I'm hearing everybody correctly, I think we don't have an intention to fill the role here anytime soon. So we can clean that up. There's a couple things I need to clean
Very
up
good.
on the salary end that I was going to bring forward that budget bad with my words tonight, bring forward that ordinance to clarify next month anyway. And if it's council's desire, and if I talk to the mayor, we can figure out a way to maybe financially get another position funded within Public Works. I can tweak that as well, but we'll kind of let that be a fluid conversation between the mayor and I, and I'll certainly keep you all updated. And then I can kind of formally present you with a recommendation here in the next couple of weeks of what we think we might be able to do. I don't want to promise that I'm going to create another labor position in Public Works, because we haven't fully sat down and fledged out the numbers to see if financially it can work. I think we all know it's needed, but we'll continue to kind of put that together for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Thank you, Mr. Giffen. Does anybody else have any questions for Attorney Edge tonight? No, and we're done with old business. Going once, twice, 3 strikes. The next thing on the agenda would be a motion for adjournment, if anybody would so like to make that.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second? Motion's been made by Member Cornett, second by Member Neary. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Thanks for joining tonight. You all be safe, and hopefully we'll see each other soon.
All right.
Bye-bye.
He is all.
See ya.
Jenny, how do I get off of here?